Is there anybody there? Or are you all in the pub? Are there still any pubs open near you? Saturday used to be Tiswas Day, of course, as well as Doctor Who Day. Every day is Doctor Who Day here at Type 40. If you know where to look. Okay, so where am I? Here I am, and there you are. Hello, welcome back to Type 40 at the weekend for a change. Surprise, surprise, with a few bits and pieces to pick up on and some unfinished business too. I felt I needed to take care of. So if you're free, I'm certainly free, and you have an hour or so to get into a few things, then let's have a look and see what's out there in the Whoniverse and what's gone on with that big story. People, is everybody there? Yes, they are there. Hello, everybody. Good to have you aboard. And we've got hello, everybody from Lord Thoth and Garbage. Yeah, thanks, guys. Anybody with the sort of the moderator's wrench, thank you so much for being here, guys. I'm free, says Garbage, but not like that. You could at least buy him a Weatherspoons meal. So I've heard, Garbage, at the very least. Hello, good morning and afternoon to all you peeps. And hello, Dan. Hello, Rose. How did you know it was going to be me? How did you know? Yes, it is me. Of course it is. Yes, so who am I? If you don't know already or haven't read the little thing at the bottom, I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, also known by Doctor Who Positivity, no less, as that twat. Thank you. Yeah, I had no idea that my mother had got an X account either. It's the strangest thing. People can keep this stuff from you. So yes, my first time back at it since Type 40 Live the other night. What a show that was. Loads of nostalgia, plenty of laughs too. All a bit of a blur now, but then again, it always is. It's often a blur while I'm doing it, come to think of it. But thank everybody who was there commenting, getting involved and rolling with it while we did the things that we do, really. So yes, if you haven't caught that, that was a Type 40 Live night off. It wasn't a night off, but it was. It's a pun. I like my puns. Just nod and say, yes, Dan. Yes, Dan. So go and check that out by all means later on. Yeah, so earlier on in the week, there was lots of things on my mind, and you may have been good enough to listen as well. If you did, thank you for your indulgence and your patience while I worked a few things through, because it was unpleasant and it was arresting. As a Brit, it was sort of embarrassing to see the BBC caught up in the things that they were caught up in. Obviously, if it wasn't for the BBC, we wouldn't have Doctor Who at all, would we? And so, yeah, we've all followed this story, I think, quite keenly over the intervening days. Has it reached a head? I'm not entirely sure it has, but I do feel it could have reached a point where it's good to chip back in and add some more thoughts. What do you think? Hi, Dan, says Gary. The Retro Doc himself has joined us. Good to see Gary. Who else is here? Stephen Braddock's in too. Thanks for cheering up a rotten, wet afternoon. No pressure. I can't guarantee this is going to cheer you up, mate. But I'll do my best. I'm still chilled out already. But I thought, well, if I'm going to read another article, more a story really than an article, from a very specific place, if I'm going to read it, I may as well read it with you, because I'll probably be talking about it to you anyway, won't I? So why read it twice? We have, we've got Stephen Braddock says Thursday's show was S tier with the 18. What does S tier mean? It doesn't mean what I think it means, does it? I would hope not. We leave all that. We leave all that to them, don't we? To the BBC themselves. They've got more than enough of this to last us. Yes. Yes, Garbage has heard about the latest TV license issue. Apparently, yeah, I probably should save this for later, but apparently the BBC are talking about putting it up to £250 a year if you are still a license fee payer. So think very, very carefully about how much of the product you consume, watch, listen to. Actually, I think BBC Radio is for free, isn't it? But how much of it you actually watch, those services that are covered, which ones do you actually use, and work out whether it works out decent value for money for you. That's my advice. I do believe in defunding the BBC, as I think I've made it pretty clear so far, but I've also been quite clear about the fact that I do believe that if you use the BBC, then it's fair enough. I gave up my license because there was nothing worth watching to my eyes. But all the things that have come out about them in recent years and recent days, obviously they've only convinced me further that my judgment was very well placed. Okay, I don't think you could get a TV license to cover this anyway, could you? I'd have the knock, wouldn't I, from the guy from Capita. Hello. We need to talk to you about. No, you don't, mate. Piss off. Dan, it means top of the top. Top of the top. Is that what S level? Okay. So why wasn't it T level then? Oh. Stephen Baddock's tried to cancel his TV license online, and you can't anymore. I think you can certainly, because they keep coming back to you to make a fresh statement about, do you still need a license? Are you sure you don't need a license? And you can do that online. You can refresh your disinterest online. But I think I wrote to them, because it's been a number of years now, so I did put it in writing. I would not pay my license for that van to turn up. No, I meant, would this count as an abode by which they would, they'd find you, wouldn't they? They always find you. The easiest place to hide, I think, is probably in here. Right, Tom? Yes, so let's compare and contrast our experiences over the recent days, our takes on the big story, and take stock of where we are right now. Because obviously yesterday, as of time of recording, was the deadline, wasn't it? The deadline whereby he had told them, hadn't he, that he wanted an apology at the very, very least, and was seeking compensation from the BBC while they were convulsing and shaking and resigning, weren't they, themselves, to the fact that they were screwed, really. They were caught red-handed. Tim Davie, the BBC Director General, he left. He handed in his notice, as did the News Chief Executive Officer, Deborah Turnus. They both resigned at the start of the week, didn't they? That was on Monday, I think. So it's snowballed from there, really. I think that could have been a damage limitation exercise by the BBC, but it was never going to satisfy the president for long, if at all, was it? No. And yeah, I think for many of us, I think Doctor Who fans have weathered this storm with the BBC for longer than most, because a great many of us feel aggrieved, disenfranchised, unwanted by the BBC, and yet we've often been some of the most fiercely loyal, haven't we? Because of that brand that we love so much, that we followed so doggedly, some of us for all our lives, for like 50, 60 years, something like that. It will be bigger on the inside, says John Middleton. Talking about? I don't know. What are you talking about? Gary says that Trump should promise not to sue the BBC into oblivion in exchange for devoting half of their budget to recovering the missing episodes. Yeah, defund the BBC, but fund Film is Fabulous, please. That would be cool by us. Much better use of everybody's money. Yes, so the story is everywhere. It's moved on considerably. The BBC, well, they said as little as they could possibly get away with at the time, didn't they? But as I understand it, they offered an apology, which Donald Trump himself, he's not too convinced, is he? So I haven't actually read this yet. Let's see what the BBC actually have to say. I've gone over to the BBC News website, to check this out. So I'm well aware that even this could be full of bullshit. But I thought even the BBC wouldn't have the brass balls to do that again, not this quickly. So I thought we could have a look, have a scroll down, and see what they've got to say for themselves officially here from the horse's mouth. So the name credited here is Helen Sullivan. Any relation to Harry, I wonder? You never know, do you? And the piece was published 8 hours ago as of time of recording. So that was just past midnight on Saturday morning, the 15th of November, 2025. So past that deadline. It was 10 p.m., wasn't it? The president's deadline to the BBC, whereby he expected an apology, a full apology and compensation. So it goes on to say, US President Donald Trump has said he will take legal action against the BBC over how his speech was edited by Panorama. That was back in his speech from 2021, was edited when it was shown in 2024, wasn't it, just before the presidential election. So he spoke to reporters on board Air Force One on Friday evening. So this is a fresh quote. He said, "We'll sue them for anywhere between $1 billion, that's over £750 million, and $5 billion, probably sometime next week." I like it's very offhand, isn't it? Oh, probably next week, sometime, wherever. Keep them on their toes, right? On Thursday, the BBC said the edit of the 6th of January 2021 speech had unintentionally given the mistaken impression that President Trump had made a direct call for violent action and said it would not be broadcast again. That speech, or should I say that remix of the speech, is everywhere. It's been everywhere for a long time. I'd seen it before online. The BBC can forget. The internet never forgets. If it's searchable, it's forever. The corporation apologized to the president, but said it would not pay financial compensation. I think we were expecting that, weren't we, in all sincerity? I knew they'd apologize. I thought they may offer some form of compensation or a donation of some kind, maybe. It goes on to say the corporation apologized to the president, but said it would not pay financial compensation. The BBC released that statement after Trump's lawyers threatened to sue the BBC for $1 billion in damages unless the corporation issued a retraction, apology, and paid him compensation. So the retraction, that's the part where they declare, rather than promise, but they declare that the remixed speech, the edited speech, the misrepresentation will not be broadcast again. Trump said, "I think I have to do it." He told reporters of his plan to take legal action. They cheated. They changed the words coming out of my mouth. You know, when somebody misrepresents us in an everyday conversation, you do feel aggrieved, don't you? So can you imagine if somebody did that to millions of people globally? The president has stated he has not raised the issue with Sir Keir Starmer, as if that's going to get you anywhere. He's never in the bloody country. If you can find him, mate, you raise it with him by all means. Has not raised the issue with Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, but that the Prime Minister had asked to speak to him. Okay, so the BBC could be asking Starmer to speak to the President on their behalf. That's interesting. Because, you know, it all comes from them, doesn't it? They're a propaganda arm of the government now. Trump said he would call Starmer over the weekend. Somebody's going to make that call, aren't they? Somebody's going to create that with AI or something. Just imagine. To eavesdrop on that. To hear Starmer creeping and crawling. It goes on to say, a search of public court record databases confirmed that no lawsuit had been filed in federal or state court in Florida as of Friday evening. Well, no, the deadline was Friday evening, wasn't it? So why would he have done it early? In a separate interview on Saturday, recorded before his comments on Air Force One, Trump said he had an obligation to sue the BBC, adding, if you don't do it, you don't stop it from happening again with other people. Demonstrably true. Because Trump is hardly the first, is he? Other people have simply not got the resources to do that, or the brass neck, the stones, whatever you want to call it. He called the edit egregious and worse than the Kamala thing. And that's a reference to a dispute he had with US news outlet CBS over an interview on the 60 Minutes program with his 2024 election opponent, Kamala Harris. Now, is that the one where they had recorded it and then they took possession of the material and re-edited her answers to make them seem tighter, more concise, appropriate, and cognizant? Because that woman was a mess, wasn't she? And yeah, that led to, in July this year just gone, the US media company Paramount Global agreed to pay $16 million. That's £13.5 million to settle that dispute concerning the interview that the president's referenced in there. So he's got form. He's been in these trenches before. This was so the wrong fight to pick. The controversy stems from the way in which Trump's 6th of January 2021 speech was edited by Panorama for a documentary which aired in October 2024. During this address, he told supporters, "We are going to walk down to the Capitol and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women." A call for unity, dignity, respect, a non-partisan call for decency and history. More than 50 minutes later in the speech, he said, "And we fight like hell." Completely separate part of the speech. And of course, they edited it to condense it down. So the president was heard to be said, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you. And we fight like hell," which does sound like a direct incitement to violent action, doesn't it? Controversy around how Trump's speech was edited has led to the resignations, those high-profile resignations we spoke about before. In its corrections and clarifications section published on Thursday evening, the BBC said that Panorama had been reviewed after criticism of how Trump's speech had been edited. We accept, some more words from the BBC here, we accept that our edit unintentionally created the impression that we were showing a single continuous section of the speech rather than excerpts from different points in the speech. This is where we break out the weapons grade bullshit, isn't it? That's just so obviously not true. It would be up to Trump's legal team to prove that, I would imagine. Lawyers for the BBC have written to Trump's legal team, a BBC spokesperson said this week. So he has been interacting with them, whether he's filed at a court or not. We've got a quote here from the BBC chairman too, Samir Shah, who says, while the BBC sincerely regrets the manner in which the video clip was edited, we strongly disagree that there is basis for a defamation claim. Whose lawyers do you trust the most? Whose do you think have got more experience in dealing with these kind of matters? In its letter to the Trump legal team, the BBC set out 5 main arguments for why it did not think it had a case to answer. Firstly, because they did not have the rights to distribute the Panorama episode on its US channels. How does that make a difference? This is the age of the internet. Very few people watch Imagine the BBC can't get their heads around this, can they? This simple reality that people don't watch television anymore. It's the clips survive online. When the documentary was available on BBC iPlayer, it was restricted for viewers in the UK, which is an extended period of time, at least a year. And we're all in contact now across social media in real time, whatever time zone we're in. We can talk about these matters, about whatever we've seen. And people with VPNs, they can watch this stuff. They can watch it. They can share it. Secondly, the BBC claims that the documentary did not cause the president harm, as he was re-elected shortly after. So the logic from the BBC's point of view is, well, what's wrong? You were re-elected, weren't you? You won, didn't you? What's the problem? These people have no principles whatsoever. They've forgotten the standards of which they're supposed to exist by. Their charters, their duty. They forget this stuff when it suits them. Thirdly, the BBC said the clip was not designed to mislead, but just to shorten a long speech, and the edit was not done with malice. The thing is, when you judge that against a pattern of behaviour, because this is far from the first time that things have been viciously politically edited, is it? When you look at that pattern of behaviour, it's not an isolated occurrence. And it only ever goes in one direction too. They've never accidentally re-edited, I don't know, a Keir Starmer, for example, to make him seem sympathetic and warm and cuddly and relatable, have they? It's only ever in the one direction. Fourthly, it said the clip was never meant to be considered in isolation. Rather, it was 12 seconds within an hour-long program, which also contained lots of voices in support of Trump. So they're appealing to a broad, holistic balance within the body of the actual program itself, which holds a certain amount of water. I can't deny. But still, those are the words that were left ringing in everybody's ears, weren't they? Because it was so many years after the speech was given, they would have known that that's the material that people would have been paying extra attention to. That was that day in American history, as I understand it, American political history, is still shrouded in a certain amount of mystery, ambiguity, and tragedy. Someone lost their lives at that location, that date. In this instance, I don't think that this fourth point matters. I think it's discounted by the severity of everything else. Finally, they offered an opinion on a matter of public concern, and political speech is heavily protected under defamation laws in the US. So they're claiming that their opinions, that their free speech, their editorial position and opinion is protected under those defamation laws within the US itself. So they're admitting that this was editorialized to not come from a unbiased perspective. They wanted to communicate their opinion of the man and their interpretations of his words, rather than the words that were actually spoken and the intention of the gentleman from whose lips they'd left. The BBC apology came hours after a similarly edited clip broadcast on Newsnight in 2022 was revealed by the Daily Telegraph. And they've also apologized to at least one other high-profile figure. Again, someone who's not a lefty in the political world, just in the last 3 or 4 days, haven't they? All there to read back for yourselves there. This is the BBC's own news website and their account of their apology to Trump and how he has reacted to it. Now, I believe the apology was what he wanted. I think it's very evident that he's still going to proceed with some legal action. The kind of figures that are mentioned here, up to $5 billion. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was that much. But I suspect personally that this will likely go all the way through to a conclusion. I can't see Keir Starmer making a difference. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Had you seen this? Had you read this before? Have you been following the story all week as I have? Let's take some comments and see what you guys have got to say. Greetings, says Corvin. Hi, good to see you, Corvin. Stephen Braddock said they made a mistake that they purposefully spliced two things together to make him appear to say things he never said. Yeah. Corvin says, it's true Doctor Who fans have a long and complicated relationship with the BBC. In the late 80s, I think some fans began to see Who's problems as an index of wider issues in the corporation. I think we did, yeah. When it was treating a high-profile show the way that it was, with not a huge amount of dignity. Some people say it won't go into our courts because it's over the due date for defamation, the statute of limitations. But I've read that doesn't apply in this case for whatever reason. It's people largely on the left trying to sort of game this somehow, making excuses. We're joined by Stephen O'Neill in the live chat there. Good to see Stephen. Several more. Gary adds that 3 days ago, the BBC tweeted out a totally erroneous post that tied Trump to, the late Jeffrey Epstein, which has already been proven false. Okay, I hadn't seen that. I can't follow the Epstein stuff. It seems so complicated. So many people involved to one degree or another, because that man led a very complicated, clandestine and perverted life, didn't he? So the BBC have tweeted a totally erroneous post that had tied Trump to Epstein himself, which has already been proven false. No, I hadn't seen that. Corvin adds that the BBC reporter in the embedded video is pretty good. He did some good reporting on the scene of the Trump rally shooting in the election campaign. Maybe. Will there even be a BBC to put on Doctor Who after being sued? Well, this is it. The BBC can't sustain a 5 billion hit. Which is not that they'd find a way. Matthew Pounder says, we're sorry for being caught. They're sorry for getting caught. That's all it is. They've done it before and they'd have continued to do it over and over again had someone not drawn this particular line. stood strong and firm. It's not a pretty picture, is it, Tom? Not a pretty picture at all. So have you been following this as much as we have? Tell the church, says Dark Place. The trust is government defence, says Matthew Pounder. Deep Thought 42 adds, they're deflecting. A video clip like that is going to stick in people's minds. Of course it is. Because that speech had been nearly 3 years ago at that point. It was already a point of consternation, wasn't it? Stephen Braddock reminds us that it could be the case here that Trump's lawyers could demand full access to multiple files of the BBC's, their communications, and their certainly their within their department, the news department, their position, their documentation on any coverage regarding Trump at all. That if that's part of the course, if that's something that's possible, that's credible, appropriate, this could get. It could be very exposing, which is, of course, why the BBC are wiggling on the hook like the worms that they are. With the amount of people, they've everybody from Jason Manford to Kirsty Allsop. She's been out ranting. Deborah Meaden from Dragon's Den. They've all been at it. Colin Salmon from EastEnders, a fabulous actor. Who doesn't love Colin Salmon? Everybody, it's one of those actors everybody can relate to. Same with Jason Manford. You know, he's got that kind of bloke down the pub kind of vibe about him. There they are, willing to go onto social media and claim that the BBC, they're either claiming that it was endorsing the idea that it was accidental. Oh, it's just anybody can make a mistake, and reminding us of why, oh, it'd be terrible if we lost the BBC. All those people who are insisting there is no chance that Donald Trump can get a result with this. If that was true, then why would all their best and brightest be out there on social media using their platforms to run defense on this level for days on end? The BBC clearly believe, and they'll have taken legal advice. They'll have taken legal advice. So if they've taken legal advice, they clearly believe that Trump stands a chance of skinning them alive. And I think it's funny as fuck. I'm here to watch it for as long as it plays out. They are a law unto themselves. How arrogant. In all fairness, that report, that news report, which admittedly was a summary, wasn't it? Again, that's what reports tend to be. As it was broken down, the reporter does make it clear the 5 points that the BBC are offering to counteract the idea that the president has been defamed. I can't see how that would be convincing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not legally trained. There could be loopholes here and there, but does it have the ring of truth to you? I think that a legal team, legal ninjas, the like of which somebody like Trump is going to have at his disposal, are going to make short work of that. If we can see through the gaps. Matthew Pounder reminds us that the BBC is worth $6 million. The lawsuit is $5 billion. Is that true? That seems a low amount, Matthew. Are you sure? Gary says misquoting is not protected by the First Amendment. If it defames someone, misquoting is not protected by the First Amendment if it defames someone or constitutes a fraud. Gotcha. Well, so the crux of it is they've got to try and, they're trying to say that this is not defamation. So that's what they're trying to make clear, isn't it? That's their big gambit. you think that's going to wash, Tom? Will it wash with him? Does it wash with anybody? It clearly wouldn't have convinced Tim Davie, otherwise he wouldn't have resigned. Neither would Deborah Turnus. What a week, everybody. What a week. Another embarrassing load of old bullshit from the BBC. The take-up from the license fee is 3.5 billion a year. Says Stephen Braddock. So yeah, I thought it was a lot more than that. Angry Pothead, I'm not going to go too deep into the other tangential stuff. I know, because that's not what this is for. I'm not saying that you're not right, but obviously that's a whole other can of worms, not really within our remit here. But thank you, though. Thanks for the comment. The BBC News Service has stepped over the line and misrepresented the truth so many times in recent years. It's far beyond the point of mistakes. No, it's a pattern, a consistent pattern of behaviour, an editorial position, an abandonment of responsibility and duty. Carol Vorderman has gone quiet again. Says garbage. Again, obviously we talk about Doctor Who primarily here at Type 40. What effect will this have on any of Doctor Who's future, if it has one? Short term or long term? It's standing as a global brand. If the BBC's own name becomes mud, which is not far off from being at the moment, is it? Let's face it. So that's the latest. Where could this end? To be continued, like most things are. I'll be keeping a very close eye on where this is going. Not only because I find it quite funny, but there is, in all seriousness, it is a serious matter. It is a serious matter. That speech was heard around the world. And what I don't understand is how, in one breath, we have people saying how, boasting, people within the BBC and its big supporters, always boasting about the global standards that it sets for excellence, for trust. They assure us of its enormous reach. And yet when it gets to matters like this, it's, oh, well, nobody watches anyway. Nobody could see it. It's just a teeny tiny channel. Nobody saw it. So which is it? Are you Billy Big Bollocks? Or are you some pissant, always skint, public funded charity case? More incongruity from the BBC. Quelle surprise. Just like the mystique that surrounds the license fee. Just as Stephen Braddock was saying earlier on, trying to cancel your TV license. My God, do they get you jumping through some hoops? It's easier than you think, though. Easier than you think. And for the people in the States, because we do have a lot of people watching from America, your US aid money goes into this. We looked at this a few months ago. So this is the United States Agency for International Development, established in the early 60s. It provides humanitarian assistance and supports long-term development in areas like health, education, economic growth, and disaster relief. Funded by the US Congress. Why did the BBC get it? It goes to specific media development projects and doesn't contribute to the UK's BBC services, to be fair, those are funded by the TV license fee. But the BBC has so many arms, too many arms, which I think is part of the problem. Couldn't have come at a worse time for the BBC, could it? After various scandals in recent years concerning their talent, if you can call it talent. Let's see where it goes. Where it goes next, we'll be watching, we'll be listening with great amusement. I think you probably will be too. This has been all over the media. Everyone is talking about this in Britain. And my next door neighbour and I had a chat about it about 2 hours ago. Peter Rich has joined us on YouTube. Good to see you, mate. You said it, Dan. You said it. BBC Think Boy says the existence of BBC Verified proves that they know they are no longer trusted. It's laughable. The idea was that they were verifying everybody else. Just to prove that they were the best, that they were the trusted source. Why do you need to go elsewhere? With the BBC, we can check all this stuff out for you. We can let you know who's worth listening to. But, the arrogance of it. Afternoon from the Darren Zone. Yes, so as I wanted to read that anyway and catch up on all of it, I thought I might as well share it with you. A lot to take in. Heaven knows where it's going to go. It's going to be amusing. I suspect it will play out until next year. I can't see them letting it rest there. And I'd be amazed if a conversation, a phone call from Keir Starmer, does anything to clear the air. I suppose we'll see in due course, won't we? But yeah, it'll be very amusing. Let's cheer ourselves up, shall we? A reminder, I think, of the good times past when the BBC definitely was worth your license.
Yes, of course, madam. Can anybody identify the following faces?
If his bag's full of wrinkles, he's an a-hole man. If he rings of rum and winkles, he's an a-hole man. If he hums a little ditty and he tells you that you're...
The wonderful thing about baking a cake, it's like waiting for a birth. You pray, and something wonderful comes out.
I said, do you mind if we go over and see Mother on Sunday?
Well, come on, son, I take it you can.
Jenkins, sir.
Can't hear you, son. Get some air into your lungs.
Jenkins, sir.
Begging leftovers is hardly a sign of affluence.
You mean that shepherd's pie?
The rustic pins.
And they didn't like it.
Sorry, Grayson. You call me school bully. You miserable little tick.
It's a bit of a snag, because it's a bit difficult mouth.
Very good. The BBC, obviously you know what you like. Video tasties from the BBC and from any video shop, even the one around the corner. Well, don't just sit there. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you, Tom. Before we lurch into the rest of the sting there. Yes, those were the video tasties. There's Tom Baker being arrested by a bloke in a spacesuit from Enlightenment and a Cyberman. An 80s Cyberman, an excellent Cyberman. Good stuff. What do you think of that, Billy? Yeah, I like it as well. Okay. Darren, as the decline of the BBC is sad, verging on tragic, so much classic content and output going back generations, and now it's become an irrelevance. Yeah, And we talk about the golden days of the BBC, don't we? And I think it's good. We should hang on to that because a lot of people were involved in the making of those shows, some of which they were in that reel there for the BBC video range when that was sort of bursting into life, wasn't it? But the truth of the matter was, of course, that throughout the golden age of the BBC, they were sheltering, employing probably one of Britain's worst sex offenders and numerous others. It can't help but taint things, can it? It's a sobering thought, I know, but it is the truth. What else don't we know? That's what I'm starting to think. Yeah, yeah. Disappointing and a disgrace. Stephen says the only good BBC content is what I have on TBT from the BBC's golden past. Yeah. Yeah, Deep Thought 42. I was reading something about this as well. It seems institutional corruption. Look at what they did to Princess Diana. She probably wouldn't have ended up in that Paris tunnel had they not got rid of her police security, which was a chain of events which the BBC were an enormous part of, weren't they, through Martin Bashir, through securing that interview. That wasn't, I've no doubt that wasn't deliberate, but nonetheless, it was the BBC prioritising their own needs because they needed, they wanted, they were hungry for that interview. Let's change the subject and get on to something a bit more jolly and people that we like. How about that? So yes, happy birthday. It was a happy 66th birthday this week to Paul McGann. And the BBC social medias, the official Doctor Who social medias, posted this graphic here to represent the 8th Doctor's tenure and various appearances on screen. Some great quotes and Paul McGann's annoyingly good looks there at any age. Yes, so when 1996, the TV movie, since their first appearance on screen of the 8th Doctor, nearly 30 years. He's looking great. He's more involved with Doctor Who than ever. There's not many of us that don't love Paul McGann. And the appetite for some sort of return, a mini-series or whatever, that's definitely still there. You know, we get this, comment section all the time, or live chats. The fact that we never saw that era play out. I'm a huge Big Finish fan. And I was a completist Big Finish customer. When the McGann range was first sort of starting, that first 10 years or so, I bought literally everything. And it was like an era. It was like a TV era in itself. Even my kids used to listen to them, the ones with Sheridan Smith. So when he did appear back on screen 12 years ago now, ouch, 12 years since Night of the Doctor, that was a real homecoming, wasn't it? That felt like taking care of business. But the truth of the matter was, that was actually a kind of signalling a second half, wasn't it? Another act, because McGann's been up to his neck in it ever since. There was a further appearance back on screen in Doctor Who proper. Well, sort of. I say proper. It did star Jodie Whittaker, but it was kind of everything, can you? And there he was. He didn't do robes, if you remember. He's one of the few people that actually came out of the Power of the Doctor with a bit of dignity. Even Sacha Dhawan, who was brilliant in that, they still made him dance like a twat, didn't they? Yes, so Paul McGann. Apparently, he didn't have to put up with Jodie Whittaker because she wasn't there that day, so it wasn't all bad. Yeah, so happy birthday for the other day to Paul McGann. Any Paul McGann fans in the chat? Everybody's a Paul McGann fan, of course. Love Night of the Doctor, says PD Rich. Somebody spoilt that for me. I was livid. Absolutely livid. He was the best part, says PD Rich. Paul McGann had so much potential, says Matthew Pounder. And it does play out. It's just we can't see it, we can only hear it. Can't recommend those Big Finish audios enough. Either stuff with India Fisher or the ones with Sheridan Smith. And some of the other ones too, the Mary Shelley trilogy. My God, that's brilliant. There's a Mark Platt in that story in that trilogy. Just brilliant. Happy birthday, Paul McGann. You should have had a proper TV return. Don't any of those things count? The red button thing. You know, type 40's Ian David Diaz. He gets very... yeah. It's fun to wonder, isn't it? But I wouldn't be without John Hurtswell, Doctor for the World. So he made the Power of the Doctor almost tolerable, didn't he? Both Paul McGann and Peter Davison and Sophie Aldred were particularly brilliant in that. Yes, love Paul, says Deep Thought 42. And the Angry Pothead says, no doctor was done dirtier than Paul McGann. Done dirty. Stephen Braddock was gutted when the BBC didn't go ahead with the Paul McGann series. I think the writing was sort of on the wall, wasn't it, before it even aired here? I kind of had that sinking feeling that would be that. Terrible. Yeah. But at least our hopes weren't raised for too long, you know? Wasn't too prolonged and painful. But because of this well of affection and hope and that sense of unfinished business, that's very much the theme of this live stream. Because of that, there aren't many of us who don't find the concept of some dedicated 8th Doctor production or re-employing McGann later in life to play maybe a later incarnation who's exactly the same, the way that Tennant did. It's a very seductive idea, isn't it? I'd forgive anybody that kind of feeling. But the story bobs back up, doesn't it? Actually, it seems like every few months. It's probably every couple of years we get some rumor, someone says something or sees something, and sure enough, that's been happening again in recent days. I've been asked about this so much because obviously we've got a Christmas special coming up. Not this year, next year. So Doctor Who returns Christmas 2026. We don't know who will be in it. Not at all, really. We know who's writing it. Oh, God. How many faces was that? And we know where it's being made, still at Bad Wolf Studios. But that's all we do know. And this is the time in between productions, I suppose, when Doctor Who fans, we do have a habit of filling in the blanks for ourselves, don't we? And there tends to be sort of wish fulfillment involved or making assumptions about things that seem perfectly logically possible, desirable, but they never actually happen. The rumour of Paul McGann's involvement in this upcoming Christmas special, that started to circulate about a week and a half ago, and I couldn't work out where it was from. It was alleged he was sighted at Bad Wolf Studios itself several months ago, as this was in September. I'm not saying that's not true, but they make a lot of telly at Bad Wolf Studios. It's probably the biggest studio. It's certainly the biggest studio in Wales. It's one of the biggest studios in Britain, maybe in Europe. As Doctor Who fans, obviously, we're fixated on Doctor Who. That's kind of includes in the name Doctor Who fan, isn't it? But there are plenty of other shows that are made there. And if you remember, last year, they were offering out studio space two other production companies. So it doesn't even need to be a Bad Wolf production that could be shot there at any time. Paul McGann is a busy actor. And we joke about this all the time. The man is never really off screen for longer than a week or two. He was in Mark Gatiss' Bookish just a couple of months ago. And I think he's got something else coming up over the Christmas period. So if Paul McGann was a Bad Wolf, it could be one of a number of reasons why he was there. But I did want to find out where this had come from. And it turns out, so yeah, it seems the place that it goes back to is to the X account, Doctor Who Production News, who were they now, to be fair to this account, the woman who runs that account, she's been very good to Type 40 over the years with plugging us, supporting us, recommending us, even though she doesn't share our political position on most matters. You know, I'm certainly centre-right is how I describe myself. And Type 40 itself tries to be apolitical. You know, we do try to entertain all political viewpoints. But Doctor Who Production News is quite far left. And usually that means that, as we talked about the other day, that means that the other party isn't allowed to speak. So we do appreciate the support from that account. But yeah, they said that they'd seen an account. Where is it? It turns out that it's Captain T. Miller over on X who's put this into circulation, and it has been widely reported. It seems that Thomas James, aka Captain T.J. Miller, over on X, has a cousin who works at Bad Wolf. Here, in reply to Tharis, the YouTuber Tharis, who's been a previous guest of Type 40, although now he pretends he wasn't, previous guest on Type 40, Tharis. So he said, I asked my cousin to ask about why McGann was there. And he said, either they know and won't tell me, or nobody knows. So we may have to see what Paul or the BBC say in the next few months. So, Captain T.J. Miller on X claims consistently to have a cousin who works at Bad Wolf. It employs a lot of people. I know people who work at Bad Wolf. So, that's perfectly feasible. But how much of McGann did they see in the canteen or across the car park? Was it the top of his head? Was it a side profile? Could have been Mark McGann. Could have been anybody. So, yeah, I'm not saying this is bullshit. I haven't heard anything about this at all. It's perfectly possible. It's not impossible. And Paul McGann is a busy working actor. If he was there, does it mean he was filming Doctor Who? Does it mean he was even speaking to somebody about Doctor Who? No. But it's understandable that the speculation is still there. Is that what you'd like? I can't stand that idiot, says Matthew Pounder. Then I was thinking everybody loved Paul McGann. Everyone loves Paul McGann. Come on, behave yourself. Yes, me too, says Steve. No, he's talking about something else. Okay. An amazing doctor. But we do have more. So Thomas James has also spoken about further people who may or may not be clocking in at Bad Wolf in the not too distant future. This is the current rumour that's come off the same account. And Thomas says, Doctor Who news. Costume fitting for Billie Piper is slated for March 2026. In reference to his cousin again, he says, my cousin has let slip that while chilling with one of the girls from the costume department, she let a little bit of Doctor Who news slip. Okay, so this is something we're getting third hand now, if this account is to be believed, because this news about Billie is also travelling too. So Thomas didn't hear it. His cousin didn't hear it, but someone from the costume department who his cousin knew may have heard it. So the whisper here is that she said the props department for a project currently filming on location had nicked some of the runners from the costume department. So speaking of a sort of a mix of personnel. Then laughing, she said, I don't care what they do with them. As long as we have them back in time for March next year, that's when shit hits the fan and we are going to be run off our feet. So personnel being deployed within Bad Wolf between departments as and when and where. Continues, my cousin asked why and whether there was something big coming up. And the woman from the costume department is alleged to have laughed and said, oh no, nothing for your lot to get worried about. We have to prepare for summer shoots. And of course, we are going to be having Billy for her doctor costume fitting. So there we have second, third, kind of fourth hand information, if you believe this X account. And a great many people seem to. That Billy Piper could be having a costume fitting in March. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about this. The only thing that I know is that they would be looking to film around April, May. So that would tie in with that, wouldn't it? And I can't see how Billy Piper won't be involved. Of any of the names, I think if there's anybody's involvement to take to the bank, it's Billy Piper's. I'd forget all about it myself, but clearly they're not going to. So Billy Piper, costume fitting in March, if this account on X is to be believed. And it finishes off by saying, does this mean the planned filming in early 26 for the Christmas special is going to be a McGann solo special, and a Billy run starts fresh in 2027? There won't be a Billy Piper run. And I don't think this Paul McGann stuff has got anything. I'm not saying that any of this is untrue. I think it's quite likely that it is true. But does it all tie into Doctor Who now? I can believe the Billy Piper stuff. And I can even believe that Paul McGann was a bad wolf. I think that the two things could be unconnected. What do you think? Am I being cynical? Let's look at some comments here. Yes, I'm chilled out here, so if I'm drifting away from the mic, I do apologise. A Deep Thought 42 says, yes, you appear very centrist. When I do the test about what your political viewpoint is, it always comes out that I'm a liberal. Always. But I always used to say I'm a classic liberal, is how I describe myself. Now my views are considered to be conservative views. I am a conservative for the most part. Britain is a conservative country. So that's not unusual. Most people, conservative values. But I consider myself to be, centre-right. But I reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow, you know. It's not something I ever really gave much thought about until a couple of years ago. PD Rich says, everyone's got a cousin who works there, and everyone's got a cousin who works there. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. Oh, Matthew, clearing it up here. I love Paul McGann. He was talking about someone else. Gotcha. Just getting lost in the chat there. Billy in a Doctor Who costume, says Stephen Braddock. Well, she has to have some sort of costume. She's got to wear something, isn't she? Otherwise, they would have to put it on late at night. Sounds iffy, says Matthew Pounder. Well, there's just too many middlemen involved, I think, to take it too seriously. I would imagine Billie Piper would be a difficult person to get mixed up with someone else. For anyone on staff at Bad Wolf. It employs a lot of people, but it's not a Hollywood studio. Billie Piper's worked on several projects for Bad Wolf, so I would imagine that she's well known, part of the furniture. The pictures everywhere. There's a poster for I Hate Suze in the foyer. So I think she'd be a difficult person to mistake for someone else. And yeah, it would be a priority. I can see that being true. This tweet in particular signs off with mention of Doctor Who production news. Again, go and find them over on X. A very thorough account. And again, our gratitude to DWPN for the friendship and support over the years. William Who is also tagged in there, content creator William Who, also on X, as is Tharis. If you want to go and say hi to Tharis, say Dan says hi, see what he says. Hi, Tom. Yes, so does this mean the planned filming in early 2026 for the Christmas special is going to be a McGann solo special? No, it doesn't. And Billy Run starts fresh in 2027. No, there's not going to be a Billy Run as I understand it. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. Although they do intend to have a series on screen in late 2027. That's the intention, as we've said this on Type 40 Live. So this isn't breaking news. Too many variables, says PD Rich. Too many middlemen. I don't think they seem very convinced about what they've seen or who they've seen and who's got to be where for when. But I don't know. All fun and games. Darren Bradley is in the live chat with an astonishing icon. You look like a guru of some kind. Forget Punky Fish. Billy in a Miracle Eagle jeans will sure sort out the wheat from the chaff. From the chafing, you mean? Oh, dear. Okay. Leave other content creators alone, please. The only run I want to see, adds the Retro Doc, is Russell T Davies running out of the door. Merry Christmas, Russell. For all of us at Type 40. It's just a bit all over the place for my liking, Dan. Well, I just think it's largely, this sort of stuff's irrelevant. I think it's fun. Again, we were talking about McGann earlier on. It's all well and good. It's fun to speculate, particularly about the people that we like, people that we love. I don't begrudge anybody any of this, but so many people are asking me about it. I thought let's have a quick look. Let's have a proper look and see what we can find. Billie Piper looks demented in that still. Yes, this picture is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it, of Billie Piper in the closing moments of the reality war. Oh, no, I wonder, do you think that Billie has seen the other 70 minutes of that episode, however long it was on for? Has she got any idea how bad it all was? Gary is making a plea for the return of Shooty Gatwa. the role of the Doctor for the Christmas special, and then just superimpose Billy's head onto him. We can only hope. Yes, so that's the difference. When it comes to these sort of chill streams, I can do a bit of digging into the corners on some of these stories, the little asides that are keeping fandom talking in between the big ones, and just to see if there's any truth to any of it, really. Who is responsible and where do the roads lead? Evidently, the guy who runs that X account is involved in Doctor Who fandom, has the ear of some consistent content creators and personalities who he obviously watches them, listens to them, or he may know them personally. I don't know. That's none of our concern, is it? It's just an example there. But it would imply to me, I wouldn't write off what they're saying, but I haven't heard anything. And if I had, I would have said, is it impossible? None of it's impossible now. There'll be some months before we hear anything officially, I suspect. Is Billy ever going to explain those huge... No, is Russell T Davies ever going to explain those huge Billy shoulders? Of course not. Of course not. Let me know what you think. Billy Piper costume fitting in March? Maybe. Paul McGann, a Bad Wolf, last September. Perhaps. Where was Tom Baker? Where he usually is. Oh, it's all fun and games, isn't it? This is the fun of being a Doctor Who fan, right? 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 Trust us to bring the fun here in the fandom, where and how we can. There is something else I wanted to tell you about, if you hadn't seen. Now, the other evening on Type 40 Live, we had a blast, didn't we? As always, with the Doctor Who diary. And thank you to Simon for putting all of that together. Lots of things that I'd never heard before, stuff I'd never seen. So much fun. And we celebrated, as ever, didn't we, 2 classic Doctor Who stories episodes. And this week, it was the spotlight was on the first episode of the Dalek Master Plan. That epic 12-part story from all the way back in 1965. And it just so happens that this week, that episode has also turned up all over YouTube, but not looking like this, looking like this. Now, this isn't the first time that a fan has endeavoured to bring this particular classic lost episode of Doctor Who back to us in a new format. But it has to be one of the most arresting. A brand new animated take on The Nightmare Begins. That first episode of the Dalek Master Plan is now up on YouTube. People who saw it back in the day speak of it in legendary terms, don't they? With bated breath. I think it remains Ian Levine's favourite story, for example. He's not alone, is he? He's not alone. And this particular episode, The Nightmare Begins, was written by Terry Nation and featured the very first appearance of Nicholas Courtney on Doctor Who ever. Just got to be another cause for venerating it, I suppose. Stephen is ill. The Doctor seeks for help, but finds old enemies. Was the single line blurb there in the Radio Times all the way back then. Beautiful sort of montage picture of Hartnell and the Daleks. Yeah, but over on this account on YouTube, Janji Giggins. So you can go and find this for yourselves. It really is worth watching, even if you've seen Telesnaps or you've seen Ian Levine's own incredible AI version of this. This is absolutely worth hitting up. It kicks off with a beautiful treatment, a brand new treatment of the Hartnell title sequence in full color, which usually means it's going to be sort of garish and horrible. But I really love this. And right into the episode itself in color and widescreen, completely rendered in CGI. That looks awesome, says PD Rich. Evening all from Woodhouse 122. Better late than never, Woodhouse. This is incredible work. Beautifully finished. And has its own kind of flavor as well. Because obviously that's the decision to do it in color and in widescreen does mean it's not trying to trick us into thinking that we're watching the original episodes, any kind of reconstruction. There's a degree of artistic interpretation here, which is always a bit of a gamble because what works for some won't work for others. But in this instance, this one really worked for me. And I was kind of prepared. I thought I was going to hate it. But I got kind of swept up in it. The interior of the TARDIS, the characters, the various vistas. Now, it doesn't look like 60s Doctor Who, but it does communicate the story really, really beautifully in its sort of kitschy charm. There are Daleks too. Get plenty of Daleks and lots of those character beats that we all enjoy. So has anybody come across this? Has anybody come across this in the live chat? Absolutely beautiful work. Stephen Braddock says, I love where he's updated some of the spaceships and sets. His choices are very faithful to the originals. Yeah, and the sense of scale, I don't think it gives it a cinematic edge as such, but it certainly brings it up to speed, up to pace, would enable it to stand shoulder to shoulder, more to the point, with modern programming, animated features, animated movies, and the BBC's own official animations of classic Doctor Who stories. This is definitely worth your time. So has anybody else seen this, or is it just me? Janji Giggins on YouTube. Go and check this out for yourself. So yes, it's got what's we've got so far. What he's done, he's taken The Nightmare Begins and animated it in full, but it's in two halves. So this is what you've got to look for. The Nightmare Begins animated part 1 and part 2. Stevens declares it's the best Doctor Who content this year. Bar none. We've been quite blessed with fan productions this year, and I know there's more to come. But this is definitely worth checking out. If you haven't come across it already, there'll be a link in the video description. But this is where you go, Janji Giggins on YouTube. Go and subscribe. I don't know if they intend on doing more of it. I think it would be quite a tall order to expect them to do all of them. Just the missing episodes, never mind the whole thing. But this is the kind of account it could be worth keeping an eye on, whatever it is that they're doing, because this is fantastic work. Go and see for yourselves. Go and say hello, And as always, tell them that Type 40 sent you, please. You can also check out our Doctor Who diary on The Nightmare Begins from Type 40 Live the other day too. Simon's deep dive into not just that, but the concluding part of The Curse of Fenric, as well as lots of sort of fabulous facts about the Tom Baker era and Russell Tovey, because it was his birthday too. There's all of that. All of that for you to enjoy. Right, Billy? Oh, she's still happy. There you go. No big shoulders. The shoulders are just the same. He's doing the Space Pirates next, Dan, says Stephen Braddock. How do you know? How do we know this? As you said? A Retro Doc says if Janji could finish the other 8 episodes in 2026, that would be amazing. Yes, I'm going to start looking at fan productions, fan projects as part of this strand, as well as looking at various articles and bits and pieces, taking the temperature of what's going on in fandom, and sharing some of my fan week as well. So yes, you're going to have to suffer more of this, I'm afraid. And for the people who asked me, yes, so some asked for more Blake 7 as well after the last edition of this show, where David Milling joined me, didn't he, for a chill out and a chat and a celebration of the arrival of the latest Blake 7 Blu-ray box set, that Series B set. Now, I do have a Blake 7 podcast as well, which I tried to get back regularly about a year ago, and it's sort of kind of run aground again. But I'd love to make more of those. It's a matter of getting the right blend of people involved, finding the time, and delivering something that is very distinctive, I think. So Teleport itself will almost certainly be back. In the meantime, yes, I will be looking at Blake 7 here and there as part of certainly this strand and maybe other shows too. We shall see. It all goes hand in hand with Doctor Who somewhere. Then it's fair game, I think. Are you suitably chilled, everybody? If we can't be in an English country garden, there are other ways of chilling, aren't there? But as always, when you have an afternoon out, eventually it's time to go home. And that is all we have time for this time. On your bike, Hadley, as they say. Okay. Bus or bike? Bike's more fun, isn't it? And better for you. Matthew Pounder is waiting on the last Blake 7 box set. Then he'll buy them all. So you're going to wait until all 4 are out and then just tear them all from their polythene and watch them all at a rate of knots. Different strokes for different folks, isn't it? I'd rather buy them piecemeal than it's not so expensive. It doesn't feel so expensive having to find 160 odd quid rather than just 40 every year. And my Blake 7 arrived an hour ago, says Stephen Braddock, so they're still turning up here and there. One of Simon's best, says Matthew Pounder. It really was, yeah. It shows you something when fan animators show how poor the BBC animations are, as would House 122. I would never describe them as poor. Not personally. But some of them I've found to have been somewhat pedestrian, inappropriate, and I think they're a little too expensive for what they are. I think times have changed. In the time that they've been making those animated reconstructions, I think times have changed. I think fans' expectations have changed as well. There's always a new innovation coming from somewhere. You know, back there or over there. Yeah. The Doctor can see them. But then again, he always could, couldn't he? Yes, there's lots of Doctor Who news to get into, proper news, rather than idle chit-chat and chill. I'm well aware. Type 40 Live back Mondays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. We'll be picking up on all of that, don't worry. I know that you know what I mean. There's a lot to get into, but I wouldn't dream of doing it without my mates. Okay, what else? Before we go, just a reminder, if you want more, and why wouldn't you? It's the weekend. There's a Type 40 podcast across all major podcatchers. Literally wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. The big boys like the Spotify's and the Audibles. And every little podcatcher that you could possibly find tucked away on the App Store. Or you can just visit our home feed at type40.podbean.com or dive into the master feed at the Fandom Podcast Network. I can't recommend that highly enough. There's some brilliant shows on the network we're all very, very proud of. And more Type 40 Live coming up next week. More treats too. I'm speaking to somebody I'm very excited to meet in a couple of days' time, and you'll be getting that pretty quickly. Strike while the iron is hot. It's not that hot, is it? It's not that hot at all. Okay. Don P1 says, I'm great. I'm about to get my teeth brushed and to get my breakfast. There you go. What's for breakfast, Dom? What's for breakfast? Make fish great again, says Retro Doc. What does it mean? Matthew Pounder says the early animations were the best. The invasion was very stylish, absolutely brilliant. Loved that. I like the Power of the Daleks too, which I think was probably about 5 years ago now. There's been several that I have liked, but plenty that I haven't. Stephen O'Neill is off to watch Matt Smith in The Lodger on BBC Three at 7:20 p.m. I won't be doing that. I'll be somewhere else. And the Angry Pothead asks, am I the only Yank in here? It's lunchtime. Is the Angry Pothead the only Yank aboard? Let us know. Okay, I'm up somewhere else in an hour and a half, so I've got to get fed and watered as well. It's back off into space and time. Yes, whether I want to go or not, I'm off. So thank you, everybody who's joined me for this one. More to come, lots more to talk about, to discuss, and to chill with. Thank you for your time. Off we go. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. Bye-bye.